Nothing is inherently true. And the only meaning anything has in this world is the one we choose to give to it. So once you know that, it changes everything.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You, Yourself, and Why, a self-discovery and wellness podcast dedicated to the daily practice of meeting yourself so that every day you can be the latest and greatest version of who you really are for the people that matter to you most. So the last couple episodes, I delved into a lot of topics. I went into my childhood, what brought me to New York after college, and then I kind of got into more textbook definitions of divine storms and how they led to what we like to call ego deaths, and how the ending of a friendship taught me a lesson in acceptance and letting go of how I perceive the events in my life. I got into how I've practiced more self-love and inspired others to do the same. And I also talk ultimately how it felt inspiring others. And this brought on my new podcast that you're listening to right now. So if you haven't checked back with episodes 1, 2, and 3, I would suggest doing that just because it gives a brief introduction to me and why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing now and why you're here listening to this. And we're going to talk about some new concepts, and I am excited to introduce the person that I've mentioned in almost every episode. My beacon of hope. She is a certified health coach and studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where she learned innovative coaching methods, practical lifestyle management techniques, and over 100 dietary theories, in which her expertise is the paleo diet. She has studied with the world's top health and wellness experts. She has a degree in exercise science and health promotion from Central Connecticut State University. She's worked as a personal trainer, CrossFit coach, and is currently a lifestyle and wellness coach at Kettlebell Kitchen, a goal-based meal delivery subscription service in New York City, as well as the founder and CEO of Life Meets Health, a holistic wellness and life coaching practice for which she has many outstanding clients, none better than me. Do you love that intro?
I really do.
Okay, so everyone, this is Erica Celini. She's Italian.
Thanks for that intro, Steve.
Do you like it?
Yeah. And I really like the intro to your podcast.
Oh, thank you. The music?
No, your spiel.
Oh, my spiel. Okay. Yeah. That's what I'm going to start introducing it as. I think it sums it up pretty well, right?
Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you for doing this. I'm so glad that you're here with me. People are really excited to meet you. So this is a big moment.
Well,
and
thanks for having me.
And you're my first guest ever.
I feel honored.
For anyone that doesn't know, I've talked about her in every other episode because she's been such a monumental player in my growth process. She's guided me for the last 6 months. We will continue on this journey together. She's the reason why I suggest to anyone how important it is to have a life coach. Somebody in your corner cheering you on it makes all the difference. We're going to get into why this is so important. So could you describe your life before you made your tremendous shift into what you are doing?
So I gotta say, I listened to your previous episodes and it honestly sounds very similar, right?
I was thinking that too. I was like, there's a lot of similarities.
I honestly think that it's a similar story for so many people, right? We are raised in a way where there's a lot of shoulds being put upon us, and we kind of get to a point in life. And for me, it was, early 20s where I felt like I was just kind of going through the motions, doing all the things I was supposed to do. And I felt like I was just drifting, right? And it was confusing because I witnessed my peers doing the exact same thing, but finding fulfillment in it, or seemingly so, right? Whereas for me, I was like, why am I so dissatisfied? When I graduated college, I worked at 6 different jobs that initial year. And I remember my dad asking me at one point, why are you so unsatisfied? Just, go be normal and just stick with a job like everyone else. And it just wasn't for me. So anyways, I just kept following, I guess, my intuition in a sense, but I call those years my drifting years. So anyways, started teaching CrossFit, ended up moving to New York City for just a better CrossFit gig. And I found movement to be really limiting to the extent that I could help a client, right? Because fitness is that 1 hour out of your day, out of 23 other hours. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And so I wanted to explore those other hours. And it was relevant for myself, right? Getting really interested in nutrition, getting really interested in lifestyle, like sleep, stress management, supplementing, things like that. And that led me to finding health coaching school, right? I looked at a lot of different programs before I jumped into that. And the reason I didn't want to become a registered dietitian or specifically a nutritionist was because that in itself, I also thought would be limiting, right? Okay, I could give someone a meal plan and then it's like, and then what? Like send them on their way. So health coaching, when I read that description and found the school, I was like, oh, this is it, because it hit all facets of wellness. And I knew that that's what I was most interested in. So started the program, a year-long program. And the entire time I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. I kept thinking, oh, I'll get hired as a health coach somewhere. I'll go work for someone as a health coach. And literally the last month before graduation was actually my birthday month. I was turning 26. And that's when I had kind of my whole shift in consciousness, kind of an epic revelation within my own life. And the timing was just so perfect that I was like about to graduate and start coaching people. So 26th birthday, I'm out all weekend with my friends. And the millennial thing to do, right, is to not just have one birthday celebration, you're having many. So the next weekend comes around, I do the identical thing 2 weekends in a row. And then that week I'm feeling like, terrible, right? Like I partied really hard. And it got me to reflect on my life and kind of question the choices that I was making and if they were really what I wanted to be doing, which was essentially living for the weekend. So that week, I kind of made a decision to cut out booze, cut out partying.
That weekend you decided?
That week. After those 2 weekends of like partying, I was like, what would happen if I just stopped like drinking and going out? And I, in the same week, put a blanket over my TV. Just what would happen if I just stopped watching TV all the time? Like every night after work, I would come home and just automatically turn on the TV.
These are all things that you thought of on your own?
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you why. It was just, I had an inclination and I ran with it. I was like, okay, yes, I'll do that. I was like, what would happen if I just stopped drinking caffeine? Like I said, I don't really know where these things were coming from, but I got the ideas and I just did them. Another one was to clean my room. As random as that sounds, right?
I actually need to clean my whole house.
Yeah, well, this was around the time when Marie Kondo's book became really popular. Got the book, like read the whole method and, took a day and did that just in my bedroom, not the whole apartment. And I ended up finding a book, a very specific book that put language to what I was experiencing. It couldn't have been any more divine.
What's the book called?
It was called Thresholds of the Mind, written by Bill Harris, who's a meditation teacher. And I had been using his meditation technology for about a year prior. I found him on a health summit where like a bunch of experts do a talk every day for like 10 days. I did a lot of those and learned a lot from those. But anyways, did his meditation technique for about a year leading up to this. Never read the book because I judged it by the cover. If I showed it to you, you'd be like, what even is that? It was like the most boring cover you've ever seen. Even the name, it's like, what does that even mean? So I never read it. It got lost somewhere in my room, cleaned my room, found the book, devoured it within days. Because like I said, it gave language to what I was experiencing, which was essentially chaos followed by a complete reorganization. I was becoming a brand new person. And he described it like in nature, if you like a swarm of bees, for instance, and then all of a sudden it's over. They conform into a specific shape or like go back into their hive or whatever. So it was really interesting.
So that book, can you describe a little bit just the synopsis of it for people? So, and I'm going to link it in my show notes so that people can go find it.
Okay. Thresholds of the Mind. It was essentially about that. Like the beginning of the book talked about, it kind of compared different systems, like open and closed systems. And it was talking about how there's always a degree of entropy being dissipated.
What's that mean?
Almost like toxicity, like residual stuff, right?
Okay.
And it gets to a point where there's too much entropy to dissipate. And so something's got to give, right? And so either the system spontaneously combusts, and doesn't exist anymore, or it completely reorganizes to a brand new system. I think that's kind of a confusing thing to understand. But at the time, just reading that book, everything kind of clicked for me. I was like, okay, I'm just essentially like upgrading my system, my internal operating system. I was becoming something new.
Did you feel a lot of chaos while all this was going on? When you were putting the blanket over your TV, cold turkey, not drinking coffee and alcohol anymore? Were you feeling kind of crazy?
I was feeling kind of crazy. And, a lot of people I'm close with know this about me, but that is when I started experiencing insomnia for the first time. And, I've been struggling with that ever since, but that's when it first appeared. And so that was kind of the drive to, all right, well, if I don't watch TV at night, that won't keep me up. If I don't drink caffeine in the morning, that won't impact my sleep. So I just started getting really into like sleep hygiene in a sense. So that was part of it, but also that reevaluation of just my life decisions in general. And, I was doing a lot of things I just thought I should be doing and going through the motions. So in combination with wanting to sleep, I started just building a more intentional life.
When did the insomnia start?
That was, the first time. So this was back in 2015.
While you were doing the partying, that's when you were starting to experience the sleep deprivation?
This week that I'm kind of talking about, that was the first time it ever came up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
'Cause you were talking about how there was, I forget the word that you just used, but you were talking about how there was like a lot happening.
The chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was part of it.
It was those two things, right? I was questioning my entire life and my decisions. And then I was also like, and here I am not sleeping. Something's going on here. And so I think I was just so deeply shaken by what I was becoming aware of. I was becoming aware that I was just kind of stumbling through my life, living for the weekend and not really living a life of fulfillment. And so the sensation I kept experiencing was to shut out the noise. To the point, I remember telling a friend that at the gym, I was like, I just feel like I need to shut out the noise, like whatever that means, And so now I know,
but you knew, like, I don't know. It's crazy that you were able to. It's kind of like how when you and I met, I talked about this in the second episode, how I saw your advertisement on the bathroom wall in the gym, and you had all those symptoms listed that spoke to me, and I felt compelled. It was like a compulsion just to go and talk to you. And you and I were friendly, but we'd never really delved into anything significant over the years. And for some reason, the words spoke to me, and then I felt this compulsion, something like a magnet.
100%.
Is that how you felt when you were feeling you needed to throw the blanket over the TV and intuitive almost?
Yeah, it was an intuitive knowingness. I knew these were the things that I had to do. I didn't know why it was happening now or where it was coming from. I just couldn't not listen to it. And so the pull to shut out the noise was to encourage that intuitive knowingness and that inner voice to be able to become louder and kind of take the reins, whereas for so long that voice was stifled, being overlooked by all the other noise and social norms and constructs and limiting beliefs. And
there's a lot of similarities between probably not the experiences, but the moments in our minds when we felt. I was drinking a lot, going out on weeknights because I was working at home, chasing that carrot dangling in front of my head. That
dopamine hits.
Yeah. So those short-term things. And I don't know, for me, it happened over a long period of time, maybe like 6 months, where it grew and grew.
Right.
It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. There was just another one and then another one and another one. At one point, I was just saying to myself, enough is enough. Let's do something about this. The blanket over the TV was me talking to you for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think everyone's how it unfolds is always a little bit different, but yeah, we're kind of going for the same goal here, right? It's like letting that intuitive guidance come to the surface in the forefront.
So was there an aha moment for you? Like, aha. Because for me, the aha for me was, I think, when I saw that sign. So it was a good advertisement, even though we changed it. But did you have a period where you snapped into realization?
It really was that week, which I know is like super short term. There was just a series of events that just continued to happen. So, couple the caffeine, the TV, the partying, and the partying included, not just like substances. It was also the people I was spending time with. So I just started saying no to everything and then doing all those things. And then I felt like the voice inside of me just came online. It got really loud and I just kept listening to it. And so there was a lot of really simple things. For example, I started taking super long walks unplugged. I completely stopped listening to music. Not to say there's anything wrong with listening to music, but at that point in my life with the craving to shut out the noise, music went. And so I started taking these super long walks and getting a lot of clarity through those, spending tons of time unplugged. I would take a Saturday, not talk to anyone, not look at my phone, just completely go inward, spend time reading my book and journaling. It got really into introspection in general. Just, I guess, journaling more, meditating more, spending more time alone and unplugged. And so throughout that time frame, I would say was the whole aha. Life meets health just presented itself. Like I didn't sit down and say like, oh, what do I want to do? It was just like I was doing these free consults. We're encouraged to do that, throughout the school year, do 2 every week just to practice. And so I was doing that pretty diligently. And then, once I graduated, I did a couple and someone wanted to sign up. So I was like, okay, I guess you can be my client. Sure. And this was before there was any brand and I didn't even have any systems in place, just kind of winging it. And it just unfolded. Life Meets Health literally just
came to you and you opened it like a Christmas present.
Yeah. And, a lot of the protocols were what I learned in those previous weeks of tuning inward, shutting out the distraction, which started with inflammatory foods. But I was kind of already doing that, just being a CrossFit coach and in the paleo space. But I never fully committed to it until that time. So I should mention that too, along with TV and caffeine and all that stuff. The allergens I cut out full time for the first time ever. I'd always been like, getting away from gluten and dairy and added sugar. But this was the first time I did it 100%, no cheats. And that, was huge too.
So now that Life Meets Health is born, can you describe the multitude of programs that you have just so that the listeners can get a grasp of the options that are available to them? What kinds of services do you offer?
Well, I did create some different programs, right? Like a fast track and a group program. But really, my main and most successful program is one-on-one coaching. It's a personalized 6-month program, 6 months initially. Plenty of people opt to continue working together for greater periods of time, and that's cool. The initial program is 6 months because it is a lifestyle change, and that doesn't happen overnight or even in a month or 3 months. So it's a 6-month program because my goal is really to instill a lifestyle change that's going to be sustainable and that ultimately you can continue to do without necessarily having your coach in your back pocket. So teach a man how to fish. And so what that entails, whenever I work with a client, I address what I call their house of health. And so if you can envision a house, right, the bottom foundation of the house, okay, that's supporting the whole thing from falling over and water damage and whatever, is your physical health. So that's going to encompass sleep, nutrition, and exercise, right? And so we get those things running in the background to the point where it's freeing up your time, energy, resources to live your life, to pursue your career and your relationships and your passions and your hobbies and everything. So that's the number one goal. And for some people, that's enough, right? They get their physical health running in the background. Maybe it was a huge distraction before, something they thought about all day long, what to eat, when to eat. Maybe they had an autoimmune condition or were pre-diabetic, something that they really wanted to get a handle on. And then maybe they're good there, coasting with their health running in the background, which is totally fine. But for other people, we'll expand to the other areas of health. Beyond your physical health, then we look at your mental health, AKA your mindset. And so that's all based around the foundational principle that nothing's inherently true. And the only meaning anything has in this world is the one we choose to give to it. So once you know that, it changes everything, right?
Can you say that again, just so everyone that maybe was like not listening can hear that again?
Nothing is inherently true. And the only meaning anything has in this world is the one we choose to give to it.
Explain that a little bit more, because that's going to be super conceptual for a lot of people that haven't been practicing this mentality.
So you get to decide what you want to attach to anything that happens in your life, right? So if a situation occurs, the meaning that you attach to it is how you're going to feel and how you're going to perceive it. And we have control over that, right? So there is no blanket statement, oh, if this happens to me, then I feel this way. Like, no, it's a choice. You'll feel however you choose to feel. And it's extremely empowering, right? Because it gives you control over your perceived reality. In the same vein, a lot of people don't necessarily like that because it puts you on the hook. There's no more victimization. You step into your full power and recognizing that you do have full control over your life. Not to say that it's easy, right? Even myself just today, this day, I've had to pull myself out of some shit twice. It is a day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice. And that's what I teach people to do within their mindset. And again, this is kind of like lifelong journey, but I want to give them the tools to be able to continuously do it for themselves. And I call that like mental programming. So we're essentially picking apart, any limiting beliefs that you're carrying around that are ultimately dictating what's manifesting in your reality, and then ingraining new belief systems that are going to serve you better. Kind of compare it to like your iPhone, how it needs to be updated regularly, right? It only makes sense that our iOS would also need to be updated regularly, right? Our internal operating system. So then beyond that, the other two parts of the house is your emotional health. I talk about emotions in a extremely physiological way. Emotions are the chemical reactions of situations, right? So it's unavoidable to feel emotions, and we're often taught that they are avoidable, but they're not. We're either suppressing, avoiding, or distracting ourselves from feeling them. And the only way to metabolize them, I always talk about digesting emotions, is to feel them, to move through them. Otherwise, they stay stuck in your biology and they cause problems, whether they're health problems, whether they're unhealthy behaviors and coping mechanisms to distract and avoid from them, or however it's manifesting, within the individual. So that's something we need to shine light on and just bring awareness to. And then the last part of the house would be your spiritual health. And when I speak about spiritual health, I'm talking about fulfillment, right? Like your soul's deepest desires. And you could look at that stuff as like buckets. If we have a bunch of buckets we need to fill up, whichever ones are lacking, we just, again, shine light, bring awareness, and we start filling them up. That can be a pretty challenging process because although it's exciting, I'm going to be fulfilled. A lot of times the things that would bring us greatest fulfillment, we don't want for ourselves.
Interesting. Can you explain that a little more?
For example, even myself, my coming out, that was something I remember telling my sister at one point that I was like, I feel like I have to be this gay advocate. And I was like, I don't want to be, and then maybe 6 months later, like she had brought it up to me. She was like, remember you didn't want to be a gay advocate? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, and look at you. Now I'm this gay advocate. And it does make me extremely fulfilled. Like I really love that part of my life and that part of who I am. So sometimes, in the beginning, we just don't want to be who we are. But then once you dive in, face your fears, it brings you a lot of fulfillment.
So you're saying that sometimes we don't really know what it is that we truly want until we're faced with it.
Totally.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Other times there's obviously like simpler ones that you're like, oh, I want to do this. And like you're gung ho and you're excited. Maybe even you have a good example. You kind of got the inclination that it would bring you fulfillment and you were excited to pursue it.
The podcast.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like that is so fun, right? Like, yeah. So
yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you love yet. It almost finds you. Like you said, when you came to the realization that you wanted to start this whole business that you've been running for how many years now?
Oh, now it's 3 years, over 3 years.
Almost like you guys found one another. You and what you're doing found one another.
I like that, how you kind of externalizing it like its own entity. I love that.
Yeah, it's kismet.
I love that.
That's how I feel about this podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was 2 years ago. If you had told me 3 years ago that I would be doing this right now, I don't even know what you would have been talking about at that time.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel the same way about my health coaching. I would have never thought that I would be teaching people about self-love, about neuroplasticity, about greater fulfillment. That was not on my radar or something I was even interested in.
Actually, I was going to ask you at some point, that was going to be one of my questions. Oh. So let's talk about it now.
Okay.
So in your bio, you discuss neuroplasticity. Can you explain this?
Yeah. So neuroplasticity is essentially the science of changing your brain. The way our brain works is it's association based. For example, the first time we learn, I'm looking at this water bottle. So what a water bottle is, we create a synapse and an association, right? So we know what a water bottle is. And then the next time I see it, that association is reinforced. Okay. And then I see it again and it's reinforced until it's like deeper and deeper ingrained within my brain. And that's a extremely useful mechanism, right? Because I don't have to relearn what a water bottle is every time I see it. It's just like, oh, the water bottle, on to the next, right? You know, a way you can kind of visualize it is if there was a mountain with fresh powder, fresh ski slope. Right. And then someone skis down the mountain. Now there's a trail. And so someone else comes along, they ski down the same trail. Now it's more embedded. And so, you know, the more ingrained that trail becomes, the more likely the next skier is going to go down it because it's an ingrained trail. And so that's what's happening in our mind. You know, we have associations from previous experiences, and then we kind of go down the same trail because it's so deeply ingrained. So it's very difficult to go down a new trail. It does take reps to ingrain new associations. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. So
totally.
I think it's cool to know this science because going back to the mindset stuff, I can reprogram my brain to believe anything and to learn any new skill, anything. It just takes reps. So by addressing all those components of wellness in your house of health, it's supporting the roof and, you know, ultimately, which is your highest and best, like the greatest version of yourself. That's still the basis for any other program I offer. I offer like a 6-week fast track for someone who's just ready to go quickly. I have a group program that, you know, I run at CrossFit NYC, and then also retreats in upstate New York. And it's all those programs, they're still rooted in the foundation of your house of health. The how looks a little bit different.
A lot of people have little to no idea what a life coach really means. Can you describe your coaching style a little bit? What would someone expect to experience working with you one-on-one?
I feel like you could probably answer that even better being from the client perspective.
We can tag team this also. Yeah.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I don't identify as a life coach. That's not my...
Oh, shit. That's what I've been calling you. What should I be calling you?
It's okay. A lot of people start calling me a life coach because I'm a health coach, but because my coaching style expands to all facets of your life, so many people end up calling me their life coach or their therapist or something like that. And I also think because health coaching is it's still so new, you know, it's still not a popular or well-known job, right? I still have to continuously explain what that is to people. So I totally get it and not offended either.
You've been called worse.
Yeah. So as a health coach, I guess my coaching style, it really depends on who I'm working with and what their needs are. Well, at least in the beginning of any program, there's a lot of because Erica said so. A lot of that. Eventually, we get to a point where it's more of a co-creation. Right. That being said, also in the beginning, when I'm giving tons of recommendations, there's a lot of negotiation happening. Right. Like if I'm like, can you go to bed, a little bit earlier, or can you drink a little bit less? Can you add this to your breakfast? Whatever. I appreciate a client who's like, that's not realistic. The goal is sustainability. That's always my number one goal, because wellness is on a spectrum, right? You have sickness and then you have like optimal, right? And right in the middle, you'll have wellness, which is like homeostasis, which is ironic because that's what everyone's trying to get to, just wellness. We're really supposed to be thriving on that other end of the spectrum. But, if you're drinking, let's just say 10 beers on a night out, right? If I can get you drinking 6, that's a win. So I'm happy with that.
I forgot about that. I forgot about when you tried to get me down to 6. And then I went out and I had 7.
Were you drinking like 10?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine
remember
that at
I was
this
having
point.
10 and you said, can you have 6? And then I remember that first week of when I was working with you, I went out. It was a bad time of the year to do this, people. I did this right before Christmas. I had 3 Christmas get-togethers that week. Do you remember this? I had a Christmas party, and then I had a Christmas party, and then I had a Christmas happy hour.
Oh,
this was
man.
the week that you told me to give up alcohol.
Oh, man.
So, yes, we negotiated, and you talked me down from 10 to 6. You know what it was, though, that really made it work for me? Because now I'm not drinking. I haven't drank alcohol in 6 months.
Yeah.
But it was the number. It didn't even matter. It was a low number. And I spent all those nights, those 3 nights. Okay, yes, I did. I exceeded them. I exceeded the 6. But I was thinking about it. I never had really thought about it ever before.
I do remember that because I remember you said, this is not as much fun. Because you were counting them. But that's the X factor here. Because I have people who want to indulge in junk food or whatever. And I'm like, okay, do it. Do it in full conscious awareness, though. Because when you are fully conscious of how you are hurting yourself, it becomes very difficult to do and it loses its joy because you're no longer unaware of how you're hurting yourself. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that you said. You're like, this isn't fun anymore. And I have clients who are like, yeah, without the Netflix, ice cream isn't as good.
Wow.
So they start giving it up.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm. No, seriously, it's not.
Netflix has been around for how many years and ice cream's been around for
No,
way
it is the pairing. It's the pairing of the self-destruction with the distraction that you're doing that makes the marriage. And so once you kind of take away the distraction, then it's like, well, this self-destruction is not working for me.
Alcohol was always for me, I never kept track. It was, let's go. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to count.
YOLO.
And when you made me count, and that week I realized I exceeded them. I think the first night, I think I actually did do 6 the first night. And then the second night, I met up with some old coworkers and I had 7. And I remember feeling like I was guilty because I didn't stay within the parameters. And then also just having to count was...
Right.
It wasn't a free experience of just indulging with no consciousness.
Totally.
So it wasn't the experience that it used to be.
Right. And not to say that these, I guess, recommendations are necessarily forever, right? You kind of stepped away from booze and you like the effects, so you stay consistent with it. I just don't want people to think that the only way to succeed on this program is to completely eliminate everything I ask you to do. It's just to create contrast. I had this one woman, I remember, she gave me the best explanation of why she doesn't drink anymore. All I had her do was go out one night with her friends and not drink. That was the assignment. There was no talk about quitting alcohol, nothing. That was the assignment. She did it. She had a great time. And she was like, why would I drink anymore? I went out with my friends and I had a good time. That was it.
Yep.
That makes so much sense.
For me, it was when you had told me to consciously reconsider every single interaction that I was having, every outing, I was consciously choosing. And when I started doing that, I started realizing I don't even need the booze because I enjoy these people just innately. I had a marathon of drinking one weekend, and then I felt like crap the next day. It was Monday, and I was having drinks with a friend from New Jersey, and I just love her. So if I choose the people carefully, I can just choose no alcohol every time.
That's the key, because the alcohol is like facilitating getting through these unfulfilling social events. So if you stop doing the unfulfilling social events, you don't need the booze. And it creates this whole positive cycle of intentional choices with who you're spending time with, which is really exciting in itself.
Yeah, you don't have to just get through it. You don't have to just pick a number out of the hat and get drunk in front of it. My specific program with Erica is completely different than any program she's going to have with anyone else that she works with. Any of you out there that decide to have a consult with her, any other people that she works with already, all programs are specific to the client and their needs. So that's an important thing to remember because I knew you didn't drink alcohol and hadn't for years. I was thinking, she's going to make me do that. Oh, crap. What did I sign up for? Like, is there a refund? And then when one day you told me, if you want to go out and black out once a week, every Saturday, you can totally do that. Just do it with intention. Say, I'm going to go out and black out tonight. I'm going to leave this world and then I'm going to be really hungover tomorrow. But know what you're doing and don't just do it out of habit and out of momentum.
Yeah. Like if going out and partying is part of you living an intentional life, every perspective is a viable option. Every way of living is a viable option. And that is certainly a viable option. I think you're someone who it's exciting to work with you because it doesn't sound like you want to live in that kind of like a getting by. Like you can get away with going out once a week and getting bombed. You could probably get away with that, right? And still feel good, right? But it's clear that you want to live a more elevated life. And so it's fun to witness. And that's what I really enjoy about working with you.
Thank you. I wasn't fishing for that compliment.
It was organic.
What's the time commitment? How does working with you work?
Yeah, so 6-month initial commitment. We meet every other week for about 50 minutes. And during our meetings, we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and we troubleshoot. You know, what's getting you stuck, what's blocking you from moving forward, and come up with, creative solutions together. Oftentimes I'm like, okay, well, we need to work on this. How do you think we could do that? I mean, I think it's fun. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I like to think that makes it more fun and engaging because you're part of the process.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Everyone has different goals. And I would say that my program and my style in general, it's very scientific. The more mechanical I can make this stuff, I feel that it becomes more and more approachable because it's very matter of fact, and I find that a very, very approachable for myself. And so I think that's why that has become my style.
One of the big challenges I think the people have in general is a lot of times they feel stuck and they don't necessarily have any goals in particular in mind. What career move, relationship move, actual physical move. How would you respond to someone who literally says to you in the initial consult, I don't know what I want?
Well, that's what we're here to discover. And that starts with the decreasing distraction. So that starts with physical health, right? If you're sleep deprived, if you're overtraining, if you're eating a ton of inflammatory foods, you're going to be stressed to the max. There's no space for clarity at that point, which makes sense. So we just start that gradual approach, getting your physical health running in the background. Once that happens, energy goes up, clarity goes up. And all of a sudden, you have a newfound capacity of not just knowing yourself, but also your bandwidth has expanded. You can do more and also help others more too.
What would you say are some of the major blockages that you see in newcomers, new clients that you work with? Is there a pattern? Are there any that stand out to you?
Food, first and foremost. Everyone's eating inflammatory foods. Even the healthy people, they're eating brown rice and low-fat cheese and
beans.
yeah, seemingly healthy foods that are inflammatory. So I would say another most common thing is the lack of willingness to look at emotions. I think that's huge. And it's really not even just men, it's women too.
Wow. That's kind of surprising.
I know.
What do you think the cause of that is? Do you think it's our environment? Do you think it's New York?
Not even New York, because a lot of these people, I think it starts in childhood, and a lot of these people haven't grown up here. I just think if you're not taught that from a young age, that we have emotions, they're there to help us navigate through life. All we have to do is give them some attention and feel them and then get on with our life. We're taught the complete opposite, right? We're taught to just like ignore them, not look at them. Real men don't cry, stuff like that. Vulnerability,
Their
being
weakness.
weak. Yeah, exactly. That it's portrayed as a weakness, I think has been super detrimental to our society in general. And I resonate with that a lot because I kind of took that on from a young age. Like, I don't have emotions, whatever. It's been a really profound in my own life, just getting in tune with those and learning how to use them as tools. They're super helpful. The third thing is that lack of inner clarity. I have clients who, like you said, they just have no idea what they want and sometimes don't even actually know who they are. So we have to do a lot of stripping away the distractions, and that can potentially, take a while before inner clarity really starts to surface. And that's okay. Everyone has their own timeline for these things, but I would say those are probably the top 3 blocks.
Were there ever times that you felt like giving up?
Oh my gosh. I honestly, giving up with my business or with my own development or in general?
Let's tackle both.
With Life Meets Health, hard no. I've never felt like this was not for me, not my calling, not my natural talent. Because even on my worst days, I can help someone. If I just need to get as present as possible with my little coaching hat on, and I know I can help someone. It really is my natural talent.
Even when you're in this process, your worst day is 10 million times better than your best day before. I said in an episode that I would rather die than going back to the way that I was. It's because when you transcend, you look down and you're just so over it. It would never be something you would want to go back to, at least for me. The reason that I ask you if you've ever felt like giving up is because I think a lot of people might look at this potential opportunity to work with a life coach or evolve in their own way, however they decide to. And it's daunting. It's so daunting, especially when you don't know exactly what your goals are. You don't know where to begin.
Right.
Which is why it's so important to have a coach, because they know where to begin, and people look at this and they avoid it. That's why so many people stay away from it. They're just thinking in their mind, that's way too much shit. I can't even go there. Let's click the next Netflix show.
Yeah. That's why I think it's really important to reinforce that it's a gradual process, like kind of moves at your own unique pace. But I totally get it, because I have been where you are and I am still in process, right? And will be forever. And my very first mentor ever, he always used to say, don't trust a coach who doesn't have a coach. And I do think about that because I have my coach and I rely on her a lot. I lean on her all the time. I need a lot of help. And that only makes me a better coach. I'm doing the same work. Yeah, we're on different timelines, maybe. I know the sensation of feeling like this is too hard. I'm never going to get past this season that I'm in, thinking it's never going to end, thinking I'm going to be stuck here forever. And that it's just, that it's so hard. Like, I just totally get it. It's because of that I can really empathize with my clients. I genuinely feel for them and I genuinely love them. I get that it can be a painful process, getting in your own way. I'm the queen of that.
So what would you, or how would you handle someone that, say you're working with someone and they want to give up? Like, this is too difficult. Erica, I know I can't get my money back, but I just can't do this. It's too hard. I need that pancake.
Generally, what I end up asking is, what's the other option? Go back to being unhappy or staying where you are, chasing dopamine. Those are your other options. You can always take those.
That's good.
If you want to get to where you're trying to go, this is the work.
Absolutely. So you mentioned in Just, everyone, we've done several interviews, so there's a lot of great stuff. So we can pull from that. Yeah, you and I did an interview where you mentioned a very cool story that is resonating with me. I couldn't forget it. The flies in the jar. Can you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, that is a really cool experiment. And I don't know where it was derived from. Basically, there was this experiment, flies in a jar. They put a lid on the jar. And so the fly would jump and hit the lid, right? And injure itself, essentially. So in order to not injure itself, it would jump and stop right below the lid, right? And I believe it took 3 days for it to start doing that. So then they took the lid off the jar, and the fly would jump and stop at that same position. So it would never jump out of the jar. Then the flies within the jar would have babies, and their babies would jump to that same height. And so it was inherited, we can call that a limiting belief. And they do this with elephants. This is like a well-known thing, right? Like the baby elephant is anchored to heavy weight for the baby. They use the same weight for the adult elephant. The adult elephant could kick that thing off and walk around or whatever, but it doesn't move because it has this ingrained limiting belief that, that thing makes me stay here. And so I'm not strong enough to move it. It's ingrained from a very young age.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that profound?
That is crazy.
So we work the same way.
We all have those balls and chains that we could actually move around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've just this is how it's always been. And this is what I've always been doing. And I've never done that before. And
look at that thing. That's holding me back.
Exactly.
I can't do anything with that attached to me.
Yeah.
Even though you can. I love that. When you look back at the person you were way back when, we spoke about this in the beginning, what do you wish you could tell yourself, the old you?
I feel like that's a tough question because I know that my path has unfolded as it should in perfect timing. Like when I do reflect on it in hindsight, I'm like, wow, well, that was really perfect. But I guess if anything, I would tell my old self that there was another way, that things didn't have to be as they were. I would tell my old self that it's safe to be yourself, your authentic self. Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't even change anything.
You believe in the divine purpose of everything happening as it should.
Yeah, because there's a quote I love that who you are is a necessary step for who you will become. So I take that as, I take that as you can't skip steps. So even if I got the perfect advice, when I was younger, I had to go through what I went through anyway. So it is always perfect. That's also why working with a coach isn't always for everyone at this point in time. Maybe eventually, or maybe you need a coach for a short while and then you're kind of good on your own. Everyone's just doing their thing. And I'm just so okay with that. What I've experienced, because it's been so liberating and, has taken my life to new heights. Not everyone needs that or wants it. And that's so okay. And I genuinely mean that. I so accept where everyone is in their life right now. Everyone. And that's a new thing for me, because when I first made all these shifts and started building out this intentional life, it was so fulfilling and empowering and liberating that I wanted to share it with everyone. My sister was doing something that was limiting her growth or stifling who she was. I would kind of really want to help her fix it, where in fact, she doesn't need help fixing it. She's on her path and she's doing her thing. And that's the truth for everyone. So unless someone comes to me and is seeking my guidance, then I will help them. But beyond that, I've really tapped out on doing that. All I want to do for people is show up, be present, support them in any way I can and just be loving. So
why is your work so important to you? Why do you do what you do?
I mean, that's a great question. I do what I do because I feel so called to it. And I think I've kind of touched on this throughout, but I do feel like it's my purpose and mission on this planet. I feel like I do this because I can't not do it. This is my purpose and mission. And I really feel that I'm on this planet to play this role. That's super genuine. It's in my bones. I feel like it's my natural talents Not to say that I don't work on cultivating the skill, but it definitely comes naturally to me. And I also just think it's interesting. I notice there's a lot of things about me that I think are really like by design to help me play this role. Even something I think about sometimes is that I feel really approachable to a lot of different kinds of people, which I think is helpful.
So what's next for you? Or what can people expect to see from you? And then also, how can people connect with you online? All your contact information, how can people reach out to you?
What I'm working on right now is a bit of a rebranding for Life Meets Health, a revamped site and logo. The way that I'm presenting my coaching, I want to change because I think, because nutrition is the basis of this program, it's always been what I've led with. So most people do come to me because they want to dial in their nutrition, and that's where it starts. But I want to make it more and more clear that this is so much more than nutrition. And that's just one step towards a greater goal, which is becoming the best version of yourself. And so I just want to make that really, really clear. And hopefully, the people who want to do that resonate. And then I get to work with more of an ideal client.
And how can people connect with you?
The best place to connect with me is definitely Instagram. My handle is yo2_ Eriquita, Erikita. My website, there's a bunch of testimonials up there. I just know that I always get a lot of good feedback from those. A lot of people like to read that kind of stuff and see other people's journeys and their successes and the positive side effects and benefits of the program. And my email, erica@lifemeetshealth.com, if you want to chat.
Have a chat, right? I think it's worth it. It's worth it to at least have a chat.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for doing this. People are waiting to meet you. So this is exciting to finally introduce you to everybody. I talk about you all the time.
Thanks for having me, Steve. This is really cool. And like I said, I'm really proud of you just following your intuition and not being afraid to take action.
It's intuition. It really is.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example of, the calling that you were talking about. I just felt like I have to do it.
Yeah. No, and I share it with a lot of other clients because it's not like other people don't get those inspired thoughts, right? But that's just one half of it. But you actually had the willingness to like take action and put one foot in front of the other. And I think that's really admirable. So
it takes a lot of bravery in that you don't kowtow to the idea of failure.
Totally.
I was actually, the quote that I posted, failure is an opportunity in disguise. What was the rest of it? Do you have your phone?
Is it on your Instagram?
Yeah.
I do remember seeing that.
I wrote that.
Oh, you did?
I want them to be my
I love that,
lessons
Steve.
that I learned.
Is it on your Instagram or
the You, Yourself, and Why
Okay,
Instagram.
Failure is an opportunity in disguise, deepening your connection with what you want.
So I felt that message come through because I was dealing with some website issues of my own that day. I was looking at a huge upcharge for fixing it through WordPress. I had a call with them. The guy on the phone at WordPress was like, unless you're a WordPress guru, I suggest you pay $185 for us to fix your domain issue. And I reached out to Jackie, your wonderfully technologically gifted girlfriend. And then Jackie said, you should call your hosting company because that sounds like a hosting issue. And then I did, and they fixed it in minutes.
Oh my God, that's so great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you have that resource.
Yes. Thank you for that. I had in my mind, I was thinking, of course, I wanted to do the website myself. And then I screwed it up and I'm a failure. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then when I knew I was thinking that. And so I stepped back from it. I was like, this is just an emotion. Remove yourself from the emotion, stare it in the face and call bullshit on it because it's just a feeling. It's not the truth. And then by the end of the day, I came up with that verbiage because that's really what it was. It was, I learned something and the website was fixed ultimately. And now I just love it. They're called slugs. The website slugs are now accurate to the way that I wanted them to be. So it says youyourselfandwhy.com/podcast, which is how I wanted them to read, but they were reading some temp domain instead. I love it even more. I love the way it looks. It looks so much cleaner. And my connection with it is even deeper because of what I went through that day.
That's awesome.
And that's just an example of how all of our problems, we can look at it that way. That when we face a challenge, when we have to stay after school for independent study with our professor because we can't get our math straight, or when you go through IVF because you can't conceive naturally and you finally do have that baby, it's not failure. It's deepening your connection with what it is that you desire. And the outcome will happen if you believe in it. And if you face the failure with bravery, then you'll realize that I love this even more than I ever could have imagined because I had to fight for it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's a Ram Dass quote that I kind of live by. And he says that I have a human heart, so I want to take away your suffering. But I also know that suffering is the sandpaper that shapes us.
Oh,
I really live by that because it is hard to watch people suffer, right?
Yeah.
But in those moments of challenge, that's what it really causes you to reevaluate and rework who you are and how you go about living your life.
Yeah, but when you look at people that suffer unnecessarily, I mean, how do you take that? How do you take that quote when you start seeing people suffer unnecessarily, like living in their own suffering? You said that I was spiraling and that I was suffering. And you also said that when I couldn't make up my mind on little decisions and I would just sit in the indecision and the indecisiveness and suffer, you called it that. You're like, you're suffering. You are choosing to suffer. Sometimes people suffer. They're doing it to themselves.
Totally.
But do you think that's like a natural process that they just need? That's the sandpaper? Or at what point do you have to say, I got to change my ways? Or
well, that quote doesn't mean that I can't help facilitate the process. But even, witnessing you spiral out of control at times, like I still know, he's just got to go through that.
Yeah.
He's got to get past it. Like I remember it was probably a session about grocery shopping or not having enough variety with food or something like that. Right. And it was like really aggravating you. I just knew that's something you just had to get past, and that you would. And, I was there to support you through it for as long as it was supportive. I'm pretty sure there was one session I was like, we just need to stop. I really remember that because that's never happened to me before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was like the bad child.
No, not at all. I just, we needed to like shut it down.
Yeah. It was like the beast.
Yeah.
Needs to be just shut down.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could go on and on with this forever. I think we should definitely do an episode for food. If you would love to have Erica on to talk about any sort of topic, that is totally welcome. Just shoot me an email or send me a DM or find some other way to reach out to me. There's a million ways nowadays. And just put in a request for, hey, we want to hear you talk about food, or we want to hear you talk about how you integrate the fitness, or any sort of topic that we cover because we work together so closely. Also, you can head over to youyourselfandwhy.com to check out my podcast page, which will include show notes. You can follow me at my new Instagram page. It's at youyourselfandwhy. Yeah, I really just enjoyed this conversation. This was so good. I knew this was going to go perfectly.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. I love you. I love everything that you're about. I just so appreciate everything that you've done for me.
I love you too, dude.
We're killing it. Fist pump.